That's right, friends. It's time to cinch up the 5 point and jump right into another episode of Corbetting with Chris.
Let's start with KOH. What happened? What didn't happen at KOH?
Yeah, definitely was a heartbreaker this year. The drama was good, and I think that's good for our sport. I think it hooked a bunch of people. I can't imagine how many people came to me and told me what an amazing year this year was to watch and how amazing it was. So that part of it, I think, was great for the sport. As ups and downs, jump out, get out to the lead, right away, lead the first half of the race. Everything's going amazing.
I mean, back it up, because you started out with, just getting to KOH was a little drama. Just getting to the start line, like you were fighting it, a little bit here and there, and you persevered. I mean, you all the way to the end till you weren't moving anymore. But I mean, back up, just tell me about the week. I mean, how'd it go?
Yeah, I mean, we built a new race truck coming into KOH, and that went fine. We didn't, there was no real big surprises or real drama. First time I've ever went and just tested a brand new race truck and put 400 or 500 miles on it with like zero problems whatsoever. So that was absolutely amazing. And I think at that point I knew I had a truck that could win King of the Hammers for, that was 100% ready to go. And, but on the way out to KOH, so we went out, tested for a week, went back home, reorganized the shop, and we're all loaded back up and driving out there. And one of the guys, long week, got distracted, and John Balducci's a longtime part of the sport, good friend.
John's been around a long time. Yep, he worked for Eric Miller.
Yep. And he lost control of a truck, and managed to total 4 vehicles about an hour from the lake bed. So, it's just vehicles. Thank God he, didn't get hurt, because that's the thing that we couldn't have dealt with. So that's the only way to look at it, but it definitely threw a monkey wrench at us to start.
How bad was it? How bad was the damage?
I mean, it was bad. I mean, total the truck, trailer, 2 Broncos, and OG Brocky went for a nasty ride. So it was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw some of your pictures, and it didn't. Again, luckily nobody was hurt, internally or externally.
Yep.
But man, what a not a great way to kick off KOH week for
yeah,
sure.
But I think, like you said, you got to look at it the positive way, and it really was, that he didn't.
Did the team rebound and come together? And
yeah. I mean, and really we had a great couple of weeks of pre-running, getting ready to race. Everything went really, really well. It was busy. It was normal KOH. It was all keep up with the media, take care of all the partners and be ready to go race car. And we got a ton of pre-running in. We're looking to win the 4,600 class for the third year in a row.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that race didn't start out quite as well. Vaughn got his butt kicked in Turkey Claw 2 days in a row.
Yeah, had some challenges on that one.
He did. So, but we got the truck down 45 minutes to an hour. We did everything we could to come back in the 4,600 race. Ended up finishing second, down by only about 10 or 15 minutes overall to Bailey Cole. So congrats to Bailey. He deserved it. He's worked hard. Definitely a good kid and a great driver. So, Ford going 1-2 in the 4,600 class, that's been the goal and all the work with Ford. So that, that part of it was really exciting, but, I'm not going to say I wasn't a little sad to not get our third win there.
Yeah. No, that was pretty impressive. And Bailey put on a really solid, finish, really solid win on that one.
Yeah.
You mentioned Ford. How is the Ford partnership going? It's you're 2 years in now, 3 years in on your side, in a sense. I know Vaughn's been with Ford for a long time now, but
yeah. 15 years plus running. As far as with Ultra 4 and my side, I think we're going on year 4 or 5 now, actually. I mean, it started when Vaughn and I first started to partner like 2017, 18, somewhere in there. So it's going on 4 or 5 years now.
How did you get to that partnership?
A
lot of people don't know the story, and we have a 6 degree on that one, but what was the sit down conversation like? Where was that, that come together moment where you guys both kind of saw the light?
I mean, you're 100% responsible for that. Vaughn, had such a rich history and Formula Drift, and Nitto being both of our partners. I don't know if it was you or Harry or who had asked him if he wanted to come out and race a spec car, but Vaughn's always down for a good adventure, and
Yep.
came out with no off-road experience, whatsoever. And
I remember that. I
Yep.
remember when he got in the car and he looked at the sticks and he's like, what do these do? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that was to go from that to, having won a national championship now is pretty amazing in a short period of time. He is definitely a driver.
Yeah.
Definitely
yeah. I mean,
a driver.
that first day, I took him out to the waterfall on the old qualifying course, and he's like, haha, this is the rookie joke, right? Like you're kind of playing a prank on me. I'm like, no, we're going to shift this thing into low range and you're going to crawl up this. And, right away, great driver. And, he finished that race in the spec car. So, finished KOH that year.
Yeah.
Kind of got hooked, went back, partnered with Randy at Jimmy's 4x4 at that point to build him a little bit more of a competitive car, won a 4,500 championship. And really, in my opinion, he did it the right way. We've seen a lot of high profile athletes come over to King of the Hammers, and none of them can figure out the rocks, but they all start in these big, obnoxious race cars. Vaughn started in a very basic car and learned from the bottom how to rock crawl, how to do off-road racing the right way. And yeah, I was the cheat code a little bit, like definitely helped him, get there quicker. But, of all the crossover drivers, he's the only one that's been able to do it. And he's finished KOH, I don't even know how many years in a row, 5 or 6 years in a row in the top 10 over and over and over again. Won a national championship in 4,400, 4,500. Like it definitely proves what a great driver he is, for sure.
Yeah, agreed. I think when he started, I think a lot of us, all of us, I mean, I think had their skepticism of the ability to cross over, because I don't know to that point anybody has been as successful as Vaughn has. I mean, I guess one could argue that maybe Ricky Johnson and his son, when they came and raced some of the regional races, were successful in that venture. But I think Vaughn overall was the most consistent and put up the most consistent in 4,800. I mean, it wasn't a spec, right? He wasn't racing against 5 other amateurs. I mean, he was in a whole class. So yeah, I mean that he's did really well that race, and then out of the gate, and since went on to have an amazing couple of amazing seasons, and continues to, I think defy what a lot of people thought he'd be able to do when he came over. So,
but yeah, when we were kind of, becoming good friends before we were joining the Fun Haver off-road team, he saw my weaknesses, which was social media content, really promoting myself. That's always been something that I wasn't great at. And he was so good at social media, and, had a huge media team and everything that he had done for the last 20 years that hadn't really been implemented in Ultra 4 at all. And, I had the pedigree in the background and, the professionalism and all that stuff that's required to run, a professional off-road team. But I couldn't get past spending the money and really investing in social media and content and that part. And that was the big thing that he really triggered for me.
How did that conversation look like? I mean, is that something you guys just, Vaughn reached out to you reached out to him, you just have that at dinner? Like, how does that conversation go down?
No, he was looking to grow further into the sport. He wanted to step up to 4,400. We had just became friends. And, after Oklahoma and nationals, I want to say it was 2018 or somewhere in that area, maybe 19, somewhere in that. I had won the Oklahoma Nationals race in the 4,400. He had won it in 4,500. So we were all having a drink afterwards and celebrating and just BSing. And that's kind of, how it all kind of came together. Is he wanted to help me grow my program and felt like, the collaboration between us and, putting partners together and really trying to grow the infrastructure to, it's the same as NASCAR anywhere else. You put together multiple drivers, there's more infrastructure, there's more mechanics, there's more resources, everything can grow together.
So essentially what you're doing is you're combining your sponsorship efforts into one group. So you're becoming a Hendrick Motorsports or of such, right? You're following a little bit of that model where you had your sponsors in your base, and he obviously has some of his in 4400 now. But you guys combine that effort together, which then allows you a bigger pool to pull from, in a sense.
Yeah. And now 5 years later, like the conversations are coming up of, okay, at what point do we get out of the trucks and we bring in these younger generation of drivers? Is it my son? Is it his kids? Is it my daughter? Is it other talented drivers in Ultra 4 that, deserve the opportunity? That's the conversations that we're having now.
You're following the Jeff Gordon model. You're expanding into the into team ownership.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's huge. How I mean, even to back up further, how did you how long you been doing it now? 15, 16 years?
2009 was my first King of the Hammers. So that was the one where it was bring all our buddies. We're going to go out and drink beer and have fun. And Dave Cole showed up at a Pro Rock event. And back in those days, it was really hard for the non-sponsored athlete driver to be able to buy sticky tires. And so we went and did this one Pro Rock competition in our backyard here in Farmington. And lo and behold, Dave Cole shows up there. And we had a beer with him afterwards, talked with him. And he says, we just did the first, trial King of the Hammers. It went great. It's exactly what you guys are doing every weekend, because cone dodging and rock crawling just wasn't really my thing. We were out, kind of pushing the limits in our buggies, but it was a group of friends that were doing it, on the weekends every night just for fun. And we'd race to one trail and race to the next one, haul butt up it and race to the next one. It's
you never
what King
did
of the Hammers was.
You never did any of the early ARCA or U-Rock or any of that?
No.
Never entered any of those competitions?
No, rock crawling, always has been a little bit boring to me. It's hard to understand, and it never was my cup of tea. And maybe I just wasn't a precise enough driver to be good at it, and that's why I didn't really, move towards it. But I really wasn't looking to compete. As a kid growing up, like athletics and that was really my thing. And after college, I think I needed something to replace that competitive nature a little bit. After playing college sports. And so I think this was kind of what I naturally gravitated to. And just that addictive, competitive personality, drove me to, work 2 jobs and do whatever it took to try to be the best. Right.
Yeah. I run into people a lot that don't know a lot of your background or history. They don't know they used to prep your car in your 2-car garage.
Right.
Leave the race on Saturday and drive all night, Saturday night, Sunday, and be home back to work at, was it Core Laboratories, Technologies? Or what did you do for them? What did you do
I was working in the oil and gas industry for a reservoir optimization company. So I, started, as a hand out in the field and quickly worked myself up to the manager over the state of New Mexico and over the Southwest, and it was a great company to work for, and gave me a lot of leeway to be able to go racing and be able to do some of that stuff.
That way.
They gave great paying job and.
Yeah, a lot of rope. And I mean, I remember you had your own office, your own building. It seemed, I'm not going to say cush, you put in a lot of hours and a lot of work, but it seemed like a pretty good marriage, a good mix, to allow you the time off to race.
Yep, it definitely did. It was cool stuff, and grateful that they, like you said, gave me the rope to go do it.
Yeah. I remember when you said you were going to quit your job, I was like, don't do it.
I mean, but I was doing a bad job at both of them. Like I was coming home, I was working till 2 a.m. in the shop with Casey. It was a lot. And now I just work on racing all the time instead of working a real job and racing. Like now I just work on racing, 100 hours.
I mean, I don't know that you did a bad job. Didn't you win the season that year? You won everything in the Dragon when that came, that you had that car?
Yeah, that was a couple good years through 14, 15, and 16. So in there, last time I won KOH, it was I was due to win this year 10 years later, but it just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah. And so what with KOH, I mean, we circled around, but what in the end took you out? I mean, you were, 1 minute you were on the Jumbotron, hauling ass across the desert, and then you weren't.
Yeah. So
We heard it was transmission.
right. So finished up lap one, led all of lap one, got out for lap two, got to about we're just getting to the first rock section, and I'm just as happy as can be. And it's that really windy part back next to the Marine base that's like my favorite part of the course. And I'm just hauling about 100 miles an hour, ear to ear grinning, things are going great. And I go to toss the car sideways to go out on the lake bed, and the car whips around on me, and I'm like, I cut a tire somewhere out in that gravelly stuff. That had to have been something sticking out. And I'm like, all right, no big deal. Jesse and I'll get it out, change the tire real quick, and we'll get back moving. Even if we lose a spot or two, it's early in the race, we're fine. We get out and we start changing the tire, and there's steering fluid everywhere.
So we saw that on the live feed, because the live feed picked you up from the helicopter footage, because I was standing there watching it, like, it looks like a tire issue. And then but it looked like you could just make out a little bit of, looked like a shadow, but it looked like a puddle. And the way you guys were looking at it on the live feed, like he's got something leaking. Something's not good. Like something's leaking. So it ended up being power steering.
Yeah, so I think when I lifted under the throttle at the end of that long straightaway at 100 miles an hour and kind of chopped the throttle to set up for the corner, I think the pump overpressured or overran a little bit, and it blew the back of the pump apart. And It's just the most freak thing, and it dumped all the steering fluid out right there. And at that point, you're like, race is done. It's over. So we change the tire. We get back in. I've got no steering whatsoever.
How far out were you from the pit at that point?
Probably 15 miles. And we had three or four good rock trails to get through with no steering. And I'm like, my day's done. Like but Jesse and I get back in, and I'm like, I'm going to see if I can manhandle this thing to the pits. Let's see how it goes. I don't want to become a bottleneck and plug up the trails, but let's see if we can get into the pits. And it was very slow going, and I about ripped my thumbs and broke my wrists, and my shoulder's been really jacked up since. Like Shear did the same thing back in the day. He ripped his rotator cuff hanging onto the steering wheel with no steering pump, and I think I did the same thing. But
those are hard to come back from. Shoulder injuries are very hard.
It's driving me nuts. So we get into the pits, and the guys jump on it, right away, and they're just flying. They're changing the steering pump and getting me back going. And at that point, I'm like, okay, brand new car. I'm already thinking about next year. I'm like, I'm going to go put a beat down on this car right now and get real life race testing at the Hammers. I'm going to go as hard as I can, and we'll see what happens. I'm either going to find the weak point on this car, or, we'll get back up into the top 10. And I dropped back to about 25th place, and, got back on the course coming out. And it was crazy. We just kept picking people off, and we're like, okay, 24, 20, 17, 15, 10.
Yeah, you moved up quite a bit throughout the day. I mean, every time we watched you, it seemed like you were always in the rotation of moving up.
Right. Well, and I think a little bit of that was the Cade, Jason, Eric Miller, Herschel bottleneck at the top of Outer Limits.
That was unfortunate.
Yeah, that played into my luck, because I'm pulling in there, and Cade and Shear and Eric Miller and Cody Addington, all those guys are right there, and it just gotten through there. So the time that I was down changing a steering pump, they were down stuck in that hole. And so Casey and Raul got through, Curry and Raul got through, but everybody else came to a stop right there. And so that was the thing that I think really allowed me to get back into the race. If Jason and Cade and those guys had got through, I probably wouldn't have had a chance to really get back.
Yeah, it was unfortunate that it went down like that.
It's tough. Like I've been in both their shoes with Jason and Cade, and I see where both their heads went, and it didn't work out, and it was definitely brutal. But
nobody wants to see that, right? That's not even as a competitor, like you want to see him at least have a chance, right? I mean, not get hung up. That was just
Right.
Wasn't any fun for any of us to watch.
No.
So you got through it. You kept her moving, and then
Yeah.
at what point did you realize that you may have had a shot? Because
So
I feel like if the plan was to burn it down, you were on that mission.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I came back into the remote pits in like sixth, seventh place, somewhere in there. And at that point I knew I had somewhat of a chance. I didn't really know if it was a chance to win the overall, but I left out right behind JP. I left out of the pits, and I knew he had started 99th, and I knew I had started up very close to the very front row. And so him and I had a pretty good battle for about the next 20 miles, and I couldn't get around him. We battled out through the desert, out across the lake beds, couldn't pass him. He was running a great pace. And then finally we got into the rocks, and I finally made a good pass on a pretty gnarly line around him. And he came up and gave me a hug at the end of the day. And he's like, "You're the only one that passed me all day." He's like, you were here to win that race. He's like, "That was the coolest pass ever." And,
oh man.
So I got around him, and then the next rock sections went really well. Brett Harrell was rolled over. There was a handful of the top guys that were up there leading that just, they just kept falling off right in front of me. And I just kept watching. Okay, we're in fourth, we're in third, we're in at second, or, we came down into remote pit 2, and the guys are telling me like, "Okay, the race, here's your chance. Curry just pulled into the pits. He's broken. He's not going to make it back out. And the only person in front of you is Kyle Chaney for the physical lead." And I was just, my head, like, it just was like, okay, game on now. But at the same time, I knew that I had just passed JP a couple rock trails ago. And with him starting 99th, he had 25 minutes of adjusted time on me. I had no choice. I had to go for, I'm not looking for second place. It's, me long enough.
You always go all in.
I'm not here for second place. And so I went for it. Like, I tried to do everything I could to go down spooners, or down out of limits, up spooners, and as hard as I possibly could to put 25 minutes on JP. Well, what I didn't know, and my team didn't know, I wasn't even worried about Chaney. I passed him right away. His car was broken. It didn't look healthy. And I knew he was getting time penalties because they were announcing it on the live feed. My guys had relayed that to me. So I had no worries about Chaney. It was all about JP. I didn't know he had some problems. He had got a flat tire. He had something go on that gave me a decent gap on him. So when my car broke, I was about 30 minutes ahead of him. And I was, 2 miles from the finish line. I literally was rehearsing my podium winning speech in my head, laughing and giggling across the last little whoop sections. And
I mean, for those listening, if he literally, the car quit moving and you could see Hammertown. I went with you to go pick up the car, and it was like, you're kidding me. Like, you're this close. And when I went with you, like, it's just right around the corner from, back door. And I'm like, nah, it can't be that. You were literally that close. Literally.
Yep. And it was a super healthy car still too. Like,
it fired right up.
It was ready to go out for lap 4. Like, it was good, but just, something happened with the pump gears, where the converter engages into the pump in the transmission, which gives you all your line pressure and gives you all your fluid pressure on the transmission. Is that when
he broke it down? That was ultimately what the failure was?
Yep. And we've got one of the best transmission builders in the business.
Yep.
Gearworks and Croyer, they are one of the very best in the business. They've been doing it for trophy trucks for 30 years. There's nobody else I would trust to do this. It's not like I went to some fly-by-night transmission builder.
Yeah, no, they build the best, 100%.
They do, and we did everything right. Those 500 test miles we put on the car were on, my spare transmission, and then we put the brand new one that had every bell and whistle put to it for race day, and that got installed. Yep, like we did everything you could possibly do, and it just didn't work. Like 2 miles from the finish line.
Any idea what causes that failure? Just a fluke, or just there a solvable fix to that? Like,
fluke thing is I think the best description. Turbo 400 parts are getting harder and harder to find. because GM's not manufacturing that stuff anymore. And so you're looking at the aftermarket to who manufactures some of that stuff. And some of those parts are just getting harder and harder to find. So I think there's just a little bit of that going on. If that, maybe some stuff's a little bit more questionable. The manufacturing's not what it was. It's just I don't know.
Because are there certain parts that are still sourced from GM in a transmission like that? I would think that most of those are, everything's aftermarket, but
for the most part, it is. But there is.
But you're still relying on some
like
parts.
That. Yep. So,
gotcha.
So yeah, that was KOH in a nutshell this year. Heartbreaker. It was emotional roller coaster. It was up, down, all week long. But that's what keeps us coming back, right? That's why we love it, and that's why I can't sleep at night, because I'm just trying to think of how to win KOH again tomorrow. Yeah.
So you mentioned Cheney. What's the thought on the UTVs in there? Good, bad, ugly? It sure did stir up a lot of noise this year. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing.
The bridge the gap is getting bridged. Like they are getting so capable, and with good drivers, it's impressive. I get scared racing around them because I've almost hit some of them in the dust, and I feel like I have the potential to kill somebody.
Just a weight advantage. Yeah.
In a 6,000-pound car. Yeah. That's my only negativity. Cheney was a good driver and a good racer, and he moved over from me and didn't try to play any games with me, when I was trying to win the race, and he was giving up the lead. So props to him on that. There was a lot of talk of him cheating on purpose. He didn't cheat on purpose. Like the section of course that he physically missed, half the field missed that. And every time I went into that section, I tried to turn up on the bypass that he took, and my co-driver had to correct me and turn me back down into the canyon. It was like a 30-second time advantage. I don't believe he did that on purpose. If he would have went through the hard rock section at the end where Brett Harrell rolled over, that I think was a lack of pre-running, or, because when we pre-ran, we went the way he went, but Dave talked about it in the driver's meeting. I knew exactly what Dave was talking about, where we had to go. And I think that's maybe a little bit of my knowledge from years of Johnson Valley. And I think he just missed it. I don't think he cheated on purpose.
I mean, there was some that said he missed it the day before, right? Or 2 days before that
was the really easy part. And he did miss it. And I think he missed it again on lap 2. And then they came and told him for lap 3, and he actually made it for lap 3. So I don't know. There wasn't any advantage to gain on that one. Like it literally was drive on one dirt road or on one canyon. So
no, I did. The only advantage I heard was just the making noise advantage, right? You're the first to cross the line. You're the first to tick the box. Nobody remembers second, so to speak. Everybody remembers the first car that crosses the line. So that was some of the feedback that I heard was, maybe it was he did it purposely because he was on that receiving end of all that earned media that took place from the first car to cross the line. The average guy may not know penalties or any of that type of stuff. So I don't necessarily believe that. I don't think any racer goes out there with a purpose just to be first to cross at any cost type of thing. I don't think that's a thing.
He would have cut way different stuff out of there if that was the goal.
Agreed. But I do have some, not fear for the future, but I guess, does it, like all of us have side-by-side friends, and does it encourage more people just to, right now sign up your side-by-side, meet the rules within the rule book and go race it, whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing to do. Right. Do I spend 70, 80 grand on a side-by-side and go race it in 4,400, or because it can be done and proven to be done? Or do I, spend 140 grand on a car or 200 grand on a car,
400 or 500? Like, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know what I'm saying? There's a variance there in cubic dollars to go racing. Not necessarily. I'll say that that like Cheney's car and some of the others are not cheap side by sides.
No,
They're all custom built race cars.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're $150,000 race cars,
100%.
and I think they did good about structuring the rules to keep them safer if there was a collision between a big truck and their side by sides, and mandating a 37-inch tire because the drivetrain, the car has to get heavier, everything about it to support that. So I think it's on the right track. Personally, I don't really care as long as from a safety standpoint. I just don't want to put anybody's life at risk. And to me, like that's the biggest priority. And will a side by side win a race? Win King of the Hammers at some point? I mean, yeah, but it's going to be a whole lot closer to my car than it is to an actual stock side by side, I think.
Now, speaking of cars you've had, the closest I think was your recent IRS car, independent rear, that you've since sold. What's your thoughts on the IRS cars? I mean, side by side is pretty capable as an IRS, and seems to be, for its size, do well. But I don't know that you had great luck in that car. Like, was it just a complication of things? Was it, is it more prep time? Is it just, it seemed like you do better in a solid rear car.
Yeah. I really like that independent car and was not trying to sell it. So Jeff Wagner, who's the new owner of that truck, he came to buy the MBRP truck that Martin Barkey and MBRP Exhaust have been racing. He came to look at it. He was looking to get into a newer Ultra 4 car. Yep. He had actually bought my last Jimmy's car from me a couple years past. So I'd known Jeff for quite a while. He's an old school rock call. Yeah, super good guy. We text and call, and I give him advice and everything all the time. So when he showed up, he's like, "Well, I think I actually want your independent car." And I'm like, "Oh, that thing's not for sale. Like, I don't have time to build another car, and that thing's a little bit of a spaceship, and it's expensive." And he's like, "I don't care. It's what I want." And before I could tell him no for the 100th time, he took it. And so
everything has its price.
Yeah.
Everything can be for sale.
It was definitely one of those situations. And so I almost built another independent car. The problem was the rear differential from that thing, the rear portals and uprights. That stuff's 6 to 9 months to build, and it's super expensive. Well, with the time frame I had, we didn't get that chassis until like August or September. Getting those parts was going to leave me without a race car for King of the Hammers this year. And so I had to kind of dial it back a little bit. Let's go back to a little bit simpler car. Let's learn some stuff that we've learned from Vaughn's car, from the MBRP car, from the independent car. Let's kind of mix all that together into one and try to simplify it a little bit and lighten it up as much as we can. And I think that's the right car to win King of the Hammers. And I think it definitely right out of the gate is my favorite car that I've had for King of the Hammers. I still look back at the single seat cars, like, the Red Dragon, the Herschel single seat car, and my current single seat car, which is just an iteration very similar to those two cars. Just newer, more technology in it and sequential transmission and stuff in it. But, though that is my other favorite cars. I mean, I won so many races in those things, but never could get the King of the Hammers win. It always eluded me, that single seat car, the vision of it. There's just some stuff that takes away at King of the Hammers and that style of car that makes it, not the right car to win KOH. And I think.
What's your favorite out of all of them? I mean, you've had quite a few, but also within that, I think we all mature in our driving and our ability and parts obviously mature and grow. But I guess subjectively, like what obviously the new car, maybe your favorite, maybe it isn't, but what was your favorite, maybe your favorite time period?
It's hard to not think of that 2014 win in KOH and then came out and won every single race the rest of that year in the Red
That was pretty
Dragon.
impressive.
And then came out DNF came back in 2015. I had actually built another Jimmy solid axle car, just like the car I had won KOH in the year before, because I was dead set that the Red Dragon I was never going to run KOH in. I remember that. It was a regional race. And I went out, pre-ran in the rocks. I'm like, this solid axle car is horrible. This thing is the worst. I've been racing the Red Dragon all year and won everything in it. And this solid axle car is absolutely miserable to drive. But I'm planning to race it here at KOH. We just killed ourselves to build it. Let's race it. Well, I blew up the motor pre-running. I'm going down a rock trail, and all of a sudden the motor goes, sticks a rod out the side of the block. It was just a stock 500 horse crate GM motor. And I'm like, well, the Red Dragon's here. It's time to find out how it does at King of the Hammers. So stuck that thing aside, sold it, never even raced it one time, sold it. Like it just, I was an IFS guy from there on. I had no interest in ever having a solid axle car ever again. The only thing I would want a solid axle for is my little rear steer rock crawler. That's it. Everything else needs to be IFS. Like maybe I'm just getting old and I like the squishy, nice ride.
No, I think the current setup you have with the portals, and I mean, tell me how the portals have changed things. Is that 2-3 inches? Is it the game changer?
It is to me. Everything about it, like you get better geometry in the front. You get, 4 inches more ground clearance at the wheel hub, at the A-arm. The suspension travel is more neutral. The A-arms aren't extended, and you can tune the suspension better. The gear reduction in the hubs is taking load off the drivetrain and helping keep parts, surviving up front, because IFS parts are notoriously a little bit weaker than solid axle stuff. So
what is the service life on those? Like what's a service interval for you on, say, portals and front diff, front parts?
So, I mean, that stuff, it gets prepped every race. I mean, the whole truck comes down to the chassis for the most part.
But like on a portal, are you finding wear? Like, is it a wear pattern on the gear itself? Is it on the bearing? Is it?
So we've got 5 or 6 sets of those portals around for the different race trucks. And then El Bandito also runs portals. So we've got a bunch of them around. We haven't replaced a gear set yet, or maybe, so the 4600 truck, we saw one idler gear in the middle. We had to replace the idler gears one time on that. So
that's pretty impressive.
I mean, you're talking very, very minimal wear and tear. They've held up phenomenal. With anything new to our program, like there was a little bit of a learning curve with some stuff, but otherwise, like I'm 100% sold on them. When I do go short course racing, like when we go to Crandon, we go to Prairie City, some of those places, I don't have the portals on there. We're tossing around the idea of actually trying it. You give up a little bit of steering and a little bit extra weight, and there's all give and take, and there's some more weight up front, that type of stuff. So in a short course environment, I still like a standard upright, but our cars are built that we can go back and forth from. We can take the portals off and put a standard upright on it.
That's cool.
We designed and planned around that years ago to make the cars ambidextrous.
What does the next generation Ultra 4 car look like? What do you think it looks like? I mean, you've always been I feel like just having watched all the cars, the past 5, 6, 10 years, just to see the progression, right? I feel like you're always trying to be at the cutting edge. You always try to, find the little bit here and there in racing. But where do you think it goes from here?
I mean, the mid-engine, forward sitting Ultra 4 cars have won KOH the last, I don't even know, 5 years, something like that. Like, I don't even know what the record is, but I feel like that's the recipe. And I think we're dialing it in and tweaking on it a little bit. But, the Gomez cars have great visibilities, or the UFO cars have great visibility. Wolf, Gomez boys, all those guys are doing phenomenal in those cars. I think the Triton cars have been amazing in our camp. Vaughn and I have won a bunch of races in it. There's more and more of those cars that are getting out there. So, but I mean, I don't know what's going on with Ultra 4 though. Like, what are we even going to be racing next year?
Well, that's another subject. So
yeah,
right now it's we're in kind of mid-month here, and there's been an announcement of the regional races coming back. As most people know, Dave Cole has acquired back Ultra 4 USA, and he is kind of bestowed, I would say, or passed this torch a little bit along to John Goodby, who's had the NorCal Rock Racing Series. John has been a long time, I would say, partner and of Dave and King of the Hammers, and I think everybody, like, we all love Goodby. But there is I guess some unknown, right, with what we're kind of where we're headed, what we're doing as an organization. This is kind of that transition year, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I love John, and I've always thought he was one of the best advocates for the drivers. I've always loved his Prairie City races.
Great.
I think of him as a good friend. I can call him and talk to him about anything, not just necessarily racing. Um, I hope that he can pull this together. So the last couple of years, like Mid America went out and they lost what $2 million a year trying to do this highfalutin, Ultra 4 racing and bringing all this stuff together. And that model obviously didn't work.
Yeah, I think we all had our concerns, right? I think everybody had a little concern. Whoa, slow the roll a little bit. Like it's maybe too much, too fast.
Yep.
For where it is. I think we all have vested interest in a sense for this sport to grow. Personally, I love it. I just felt when they came in, it was, maybe just a little too much. And I was worried. We were worried about the flash. That for me is just personal. That's nothing to do against Mid America. That was just, I had watched it with Jim Baldwin come in when he bought Core, and then, he moved it all kind of the West Coast and just went all in on it, just doubled down. And then, sadly one of his sons passed away in a plane crash off the coast of San Diego. And I think it changed. And then the economy dropped, and then it was a 1-2 punch, and he was done.
Same could be said for now. The economy's dropping again, and
it is.
And now here we are in the same type of situation. So
it is. And it is a really bad time, I think, to be sourcing after sponsors or to be sharking out, not just for Ultra 4 USA, but I think even for racers, it's a really tough time right now, because you kind of have this new series, right? So you spook the fish when anything changes, right? So the fish are spooked. You got, some change in the way, the points are going to lay out and how things are going to happen. I think it's really a tough time for the sport right now. And I just hope and pray that we all kind of get along and move it forward. So
yeah, and I talked to Goodby a little bit. He was frustrated because he's getting beat up on social media a little bit, and I told him that there's the one thing that I know for sure is that there's zero chance you're getting these Ultra 4 drivers to agree on on anything together,
especially on social. I mean, rule number one of Fight Club: there is no Fight Club. Like stay off of social, and you can't make everyone happy. Everybody in racing, no matter what the sanctioning body, has different levels, right? I mean, some guys are more amateur. Some guys make their mortgage payments by it. I mean, it runs the gamut. No two are the same. It doesn't matter the sport. You look at NASCAR. I mean, it pays, the top guys are killing it. The bottom guys are still killing it just for showing up, right? Yep. I mean, the way NASCAR is structured, but everybody, no two are going to agree along the way. And I think Ultra 4 is that same way. We're never going to have complete unanimity in the agreements of how to move it forward. But I do like the plan, as I've heard it, and I could be way wrong. I could know nothing, but as I understand the plan of this, an organization, Ultra 4 USA, is this, you hear nonprofit and everybody goes, oh, somebody's, going to be killing it. No, there's no profits in it per se that somebody's going to be taking out. But for a board of directors to be able to be making decisions for the group, not just one guy, not just two guys, but a board of directors of people that racers or sponsors or fans, whoever it is, to help grow it. Right.
My worry there is, think of a driver's meeting and trying to get 10 board members that are having anything to do with Ultra 4 to agree with each other.
I see what you're saying. It could be like a bad HOA meeting.
I mean, I completely understand why Davis said, if you don't like it, go start your own damn series. Like he's had to make decisions and roll with it. They're going to have to make decisions, and we're going to have to live with it, or go start your own series, or do something different, or whatever it is. But beating everybody up on social is not the answer.
No, and I hope that I hope the direction of the board of directors is a 2-and-2 thing. 2 racers, say 2 sponsors, 2 fans, right? Make it a 2-and-2. I mean, break it up so you have a more balanced direction in things. Racers will always see it one way. Others may see operational, may see it another way. Like everybody will have a different opinion of it. But I think the social, I've seen some other stuff on social and some other podcasts that like to stir it up. And I don't necessarily think the stirring it up is great for the sport. I know it's like it gets great ratings, but I do think we're at this turning point right now of just being able to come together and move forward especially through this year. And obviously it's a challenging year. I mean, it's challenging for everybody. It's challenging for the tire guy that has to make an argument that the tires and the dollars are worth it. I mean, nobody has more, I would say, arguably, I could be wrong, but nobody has more of an investment in the sport than we do, between, tires and media and drivers. And, we and we don't look at that as self-serving. We don't sell a lot of trail grapplers. We actually, that's a moving it into, a belief of the sport. Like we believe it can grow, it can keep moving, and it needs to keep moving. But yeah, I think you're right. I feel like some of the bickering, sometimes it gets old, but some people, that's just the way it is what it is.
Yeah. So, and I get it. They put they're invested a lot into it.
Yeah. Everybody is. Everybody.
Yep. So I do. I completely understand that. But for us this year, so, I see a bunch of the complaining on social media that they can't in October and November, they're not going to be able to go to sponsors and tell them, what they finished in the championship. But if you're not locking in your sponsors and your partners for next year right now, you're already behind the 8 ball, because we're already almost through our contracts and figuring stuff out for next year right now. You can't be waiting until November to do that. And
I tend to agree with you on that one. I in the real world of sponsorships, if sure, you could break it up into 2 sponsorship conversations or arguments, but if I were Loren Healy today, I would be basically trying to lock in today through Hammers, right? We're already past Hammers, the biggest race. I would have been on the phone a month after Hammers with my results of how I did or how I finished, trying to lock up something for next Hammers. Because you run the risk, the longer you go, don't wait till October, November. You know why you don't wait till October, November? Because sales may not have been good that year. But everybody's sales are good in springtime when they get a tax return, right? I mean, everybody's sales are good in June and May and April. But when you get to October and November, it used to be, it's like, oh, wait, have the conversations at SEMA. But I think you would agree, but if you waited till SEMA, you waited too long. Yep. You didn't do it right. Because by SEMA, sure, we're formulating our budgets, but I want a handshake in April and May.
Yep.
I want something early on. But
the biggest thing to me right now, like everybody's stressing out about what races they're doing and that type of stuff. But like to me, it's more important of what you're doing when you're not racing and staying relevant. Like, we didn't have a race, after King of the Hammers, we had a little bit of a dead time. So we took a vehicle out, took some cameras, GoPros, and some drones, and created a bunch of content to stay relevant for our partners. And that's the big selling point that everybody has right now on social media and metrics and everything else. And I wasn't an early adopter of it. And it was tough for me to come around to it and put myself out there for it. But it really has been what's elevated my career to the next level. And there's so many tools available out there for people to stay relevant, when you're not out racing, because you're only out racing 5, 6, 7, 8 weekends a year. What are you doing the other 40 something weekends if you're not? And people want to know what you're doing. Everybody's nosy.
No, I agree with you. I think you're in a position, you got to make the mortgage payment by it, right? You've leveraged out, you don't have a 9 to 5. So, you have to go down that path. And you have to get in early with your sponsors and lock that stuff up. But I agree with you. The value is much beyond the racing. 100%. I think that the value, look, 90% of people couldn't tell you who run last year's NASCAR, last year's F1. Heck, I bet you a lot of people couldn't even tell you who won last year's King of the Hammers. I mean, the value is in the content that you're generating throughout the year that's bracketed around it. I just, as a matter of fact, I just saw Will Gentile's video that he does for Nitto Tire for us. It's a lot of that footage is taken both offline as far as not, Will schedules time to do it, and then taken from qualifying and taken a little bit of race footage. That time is important, I think, to sponsors, and you guys do a really good job of it. I think a lot of people do a really good job of it, but that stuff lives on throughout the year. That's the value, right?
Right.
Because we're not all lucky enough to just go out and kill it for a season, right? And just put the stamp on it. Bam, we killed every race. It just statistically doesn't happen for any driver.
No.
Unless your name is Max and you're racing F1. So,
right.
But even that has its drama, right? I mean, the market has tired of Max. Like he's, not very personable. He's, doesn't do a lot of off-camera stuff, and sponsors in a way are tired of that. They want more engagement. They want more personality. They want more, lifestyle. So, and I think you guys do a pretty good job of that, beyond it. So the plans for this, for you guys for this year, what racing, are you going to do the West Coast then and just leave off the East? I mean, are you going to do a mix or what's the plan?
So when we write our schedules, back in September, October, we wrote our schedule off of what was originally released off of Mid-America. Vaughn competes in FD. We have a ton of marketing events that we have planned. And when the schedule changed the first time, we kind of adapted to it and made some stuff work. But when it changed the second time, it really threw us for a loop. So, Kentucky, they put on my wife's birthday, which we already had plans. Vaughn had plans already. We had tickets and flights and all this stuff. And I wasn't really ready to cancel that. So we kept the Silver State date, which was the next weekend, which was originally on the schedule.
Yep.
We already had houses and flights and stuff like that booked. So we're sticking with racing Silver State. We're going to go run Class 1 since there's not going to be a bunch of Ultra 4 4400 cars. And really that's where my passion is. I love desert and off-road racing, so I'm not super sad that we're going to do that. Then the next race, it will be the Baja 500 for us. So we're going to take our Ultra 4 cars down there.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to that. I definitely have a deep love for Baja and want to spend more time down there and want to do more of that type of stuff. So we won't be necessarily, chasing championships or chasing the Ultra 4 stuff. And it's not because I'm not supportive of it and I'm mad at anybody about the schedules it fell out and they were trying to work with dates and we had planned so far ahead and booked all this stuff already and wrote the rest of our schedule around the race series and it, they had to make change and they had to adapt. So, we'll be at Crandon, we already had that on the schedule. That was one that we're not planning on changing. The dates keep floating around for nationals and changing weekends and on top of SEMA and all kinds of stuff there. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, I mean, otherwise we'll be out at a ton of marketing events, doing all the fun stuff that we're always out doing, interacting with consumers, going on wheeling trips, all that type of stuff. None of that stuff's going to change for us. And, now with King of the Hammers being the final race of the championship for next year, gets a little bit weird for us on whether or not we chase the championships next year. So,
what's your thoughts? What's your thoughts initially on that? Good. You like it? Don't like it?
I feel like a lot of people always said that needed to be the finale. I'm not.
I think a lot of people have been saying that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that for a long time and I never was anti that. Me personally, it's the not staying in the same fiscal year. That's a little bit weird for me, but I don't think that really changes anything. If you have a professional team or series that it doesn't really matter if it goes into February. I I would like,
again, that's that argument, right? Where guys are trying to carry over sponsorship. They're trying to figure that out. I mean, ideally, sure, it'd be nice to have another mini Hammers or something to finish off that in October or November, or even, early December.
And I feel like I right now in my career, that's what I want more of. I want more King of the Hammers. I want more Crandons. I want more Baja 1000s, where everybody in the off-road community and even people that aren't in the off-road community are paying attention to it. They're watching it. You go to the gas stations and you tell somebody the off-road race, you mean the Baja 1000? Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Not a podunk race in Kentucky that nobody's ever heard of. So that's where I personally want to be. I want to be at the biggest races, racing against 100 other drivers, competing for big wins right now. So that's really what we're going to focus on, and see how the next year or two goes. I want to see Ultra 4 be successful. I want to be supportive of it. But this year with all the schedule changes got tough.
It is, as you get bigger, a lot of people don't understand. Sometimes you're beholden to the schedule, right? So I know with our company, we're 60 some events a year. Like that schedule exists last year for this year, right? I mean, and to move those around as far as dates and times and everything, it comes at a cost, because every time there's something moving to an event or so, and I don't think we're any unique to us or just a single proprietary team, right? With a couple of guys helping them out. I think it's the same when you move dates around and the cost affects you, right? Because you got to juggle with your own work and your own family and your own relationships and everything else. So yeah, I think this will be a transitional year. But I think they're on the right track. I know I expressed to Goodby when the Nationals came out. Like I'm still a huge fan of what was Reno. That I thought Reno was really good for the sport. It was really good for the easy capture of media. And I'd like to see us go back to a Laughlin or somewhere big, somewhere where it's easy for, and again, I say that Havasu was good in that respect, that somewhere that the family, the friends, everybody can come out to as a destination point. I think that that's really important. I'm not saying back East is not a destination point. I love back East, but given the time of year that it traditionally is, over the years, we have fought rain, mud, tornado, everything, right? And I think that having something maybe on the West Coast in a more Sunbelt might be a better scenario, especially if we can get it attached to a city or something. Again, I know, like back in the Best in the Desert days, Casey folks, I worked with City of Henderson and Casey, and they were really big on promoting the Henderson race because why? It brought dollars to that, gas, food, ice, everything, hotel. It was a win-win. And so the city of Henderson was happy to help promote that. I think you could maybe achieve that with Laughlin. I think the tourism board would probably be on board if you're going to bring, but it's been a while since I've been in that arena. So I don't know, but it'll be a challenging year. Yeah, very challenging year.
Yeah, so, it definitely will be. I would like to see, something out that way as well, but I think we could use some consistency. Those races you talk about, they went back year after year and they built a fan base.
That's very true.
Even the same with Reno. Those spectators, we filled that stadium because they knew the mayhem that was coming every year for that same weekend, and they planned around it. King of the Hammers, they know it's coming every. You can say
that argument about NorCal, right? The fan base knows what they're getting in for, why they're coming out.
So I think establishing some consistency at venues as they try to move forward with everything, I think that's something that will be important.
I would agree. And finally, my last question is mentors in life. Who are Healy's mentors growing up? I mean, you did some college. I know, as I recall, you met your wife working together. How did you meet Savannah?
So let's see, trying to think back. We met here in Farmington. We were both leaving to go to school in Albuquerque. So I left, went to school to play soccer, came back to Farmington and worked construction for a year, figured it out real quickly that I didn't want to be building still buildings in the winter in Farmington for the rest of my life. And so, made a plan to go back to school. I was moving to Albuquerque. We had met here locally in Farmington. We were both leaving to Albuquerque to go to school that same time. And once we got down there, it just was kind of the perfect couple to help each other be successful through college. Once we both got out of college, got married, had my daughter Sailor, who I've done some side-by-side racing. She's a senior this year. She'll be graduating in a month or two.
Congrats.
Yeah, which is absolutely crazy to me. But and she's headed off to start her life and
has she picked a school yet? She picked a school?
She is going to go to UNM.
Nice.
But she's going to do it online from Florida.
She is moving to Florida.
Yes.
Boy.
I'm actually supportive of.
That's a big step.
It is. I'm a little nervous about her being that far away, but I want to see the bird fly away and go, see if she can go be successful. And she's going to fall on her face a couple times, but I'm excited for her to. I don't know. Like, I got so serious about stuff early and wanted to make money, and I didn't play around a whole lot as a teenager, and into my early 20s, I was focused on working and buying houses and building careers and doing that stuff. And I looking back, if I would have played around maybe for a few years, maybe I could have been racing earlier, or who knows what,
Yeah.
So I'm kind of encouraging of that a little bit.
And your second, Annalise, she's what grade now?
She's a sophomore this year, so she's got 2 more years of high school. She travels all over the country playing soccer and has aspirations of playing D1 soccer. So that's
awesome.
Yep, that's exciting for her. And then my little boy, he's 11, so he did his first King of the Hammers race this year with me in the youth race.
Actually, how was that? I mean,
that was my highlight of King of the Hammers this year. Yeah. And actually, so Sailor, who is race side by sides, and I think could have been trying to win that youth race.
Yep.
We got the side by side for her. I paid all the entries. Me and her were going to do that. She was 17 at the top of that age bracket for that youth race of 12 to 17-year-olds. Well, her and I snowboard a lot together as well. And the weekend we were leaving to KOH, we went snowboarding for one last Sunday before I left to California, and she broke her collarbone. So we had already paid all this stuff. And so my boy's been asking to race. He's been bugging me. When do I get to go race? When do I get to go do something? And I was like, you're not old enough, but nobody's going to check your ID at the start finish line. And I think everybody will be perfectly fine with you being 11. If you want to try, let's go do it. Like, you've never done any real rock crawling trails. Like, literally his first time in a rock crawling situation was, we got to the top of Resolution and his eyes got huge and he's like, we're going down that? And I'm like, yep, just listen to me. If you'll listen to every word I say, we'll be perfectly fine. And there's another little boy having the same conversation with his dad that was about the same age. And he was kind of panicking too, because Resolution looks big for an 11 or 12-year-old in the side by side.
Yeah, it looked to a 50-year-old. So
yeah, for sure. But he did amazing. Of course, we got rained on the whole time, so I spent the whole time cleaning his visor and trying to keep him going. But I'll probably remember that moment for the rest of my life.
And does he have the bug? Does he have it now?
100%. He's ready to go racing. I'm sure we'll be racing a bunch over and hopefully he's the one that jumps into my race cars and I can sit back and be his mentor and teach him the ropes. But
that's awesome. I think as parents, that's all you ask for, right? To be able to pass along that knowledge you learned and have them hopefully hop in some of the shoes and do it better, right?
Yeah. And I'm trying not to be that dad that's like shoving it down his throat. I don't want to do that to him. And so, if they want to go do it, and I want to be supportive and give them every opportunity to do cool stuff.
Super cool. And I don't, you didn't answer. You got any mentors? Anybody that you, in life, like somebody you tell your kids about, when you're a granddad?
So, I always looked up to all the athletes that were successful growing up, the Michael Jordans, the Kobe Bryants, like that. Those were my mentors growing up in sports. And then now, like if you ask who I look at in the off-road industry, the name that always comes to my mind is Rob McCachran. Another guy that came from nothing,
Sole proprietor. Yep.
Worked his butt off, was always hustling, was always working hard. He's in his 50s now, and still out driving like a madman, still competing. Gives me hope. I thought by now I probably couldn't be racing anymore. Look at
Larry Rossler. Come
I
on
know.
now.
Yep. Definitely.
Larry still gets in a truck and put an ass whipping on people.
100%. 100%.
Sorry, Larry. I know you're not that old, but
yeah. No, I love it. And, looking like some of the other people that, you grew up watching, Walker Evans. I was a teenager in high school, and he was here in Farmington with his independent rock crawler. And so, some of that stuff, Shannon was here when I would, competing. There's those guys, growing up watching them definitely molded my mindset or my career, because we'd go jump in our vehicles and we go try to do the same stuff. And so I think that kind of set me on a trajectory for sure.
People forget too, during that era, that was pre-social media, right? That was kind of
it was magazines.
YouTube. It's you wanted to be, as a kid, you wanted to be on the cover, right? That was the inspiration. You wanted to be in the magazine, talked about. You wanted to be, and in an event, like you wanted to have I remember going to events as a kid, and I wanted the truck and the trailer and the cool stuff, right? That's all. Like, man, I sure like to have a, new, I don't know, 7.3 Super Duty at the time, right? Something and a new trailer, and like you wanted that stuff, you know. And I think that I know in my life that was like some of the inspiration. You wanted to have things and feel like you made it because you didn't know what those guys really did for work.
Right.
How they made it. They just raced. It was cool. So that's pretty cool. Well, all great mentors. All great mentors, honestly. And I think, I think someday there'll be some that'll say, yeah, that Loren Healy guy, he was all right. I watched him race and, and he was who I looked up to. He had the formula and the plan, so to speak,
Yeah, hopefully it inspires some little kid somewhere to do something.
I think so. I think that's what you put forth, I think, effort wise, and the partnership with Vaughn. I think, and again, you didn't, there's always a saying, came from the silver spoon, so to speak. That wasn't you.
Right.
You scrapped your way to where you are, and you've been very good and successful at it. Very good. And I've been honored just to be along for the ride and watch you get there, because I can remember, and he said, I think I'm going to quit my job. Like, don't do it. Don't quit it. No. Keep your day job. Racing sucks. Very few people make it. I mean, it's, economies drop, crap hits the fan. Like, it's just, things change so fast in the span of 2-3 years. And, that was always my fear for you as a young dad and with a family and a house and a mortgage payment and everything else. But
and it's still the same risk, but I could go back to work in the oil field tomorrow and everything would, I probably wouldn't. I would figure out something in the industry, and, Vaughn and I have launched the Fun Harbor off-road brand, and we have
how's that going?
It's going really good. Yeah. I mean, we launched in a very challenging time with COVID and, getting manufacturing and everything, but we've got some really cool.
And that was all under the launch of the Bronco parts that rolled into all the bumpers and suspension and everything else underneath of it.
Yeah. And it's going really good. And we've got some really cool news that'll be coming out here in the next few weeks or next month that is, really gonna, put some fire behind that too. So it's
any teasers, any little stuff you can share? Nothing.
Can't say a word.
Corporate life.
Yep.
Yeah, I know that well. Well.
Yep.
Well, I think that's all I had on my list I wanted to chat with you on. I super, super appreciate coming on. Share a little bit of your wisdom, insight into the racing end of things. Give us a little update on hammers. And next event, you're NorCal or Silver State?
No. So, EJS marketing stuff. Yep.
East Jeep.
Yep, be at Easter Jeep.
You'll
And
be
then
there for our Ultra 4 USA Ditto
ab-
buggy ride led by Healy.
yep, absolutely excited for that. It's going to be a good time. And then yeah, we'll go pre-run the next weekend for Silver State, and then race the weekend after that. And so
Awesome.
yeah, it's always busy, always something going on. We're always headed somewhere. So
Well, I appreciate your time. Happy to just super thankful to get you for an hour. And look, I'd like to circle back with you, in after a couple of races and get your take on things. And, you've always, like most, we see your opinion on social media and you normally chime in, but sometimes it's just nice to hear it from the horse's mouth. So I appreciate it again. So
yep.
awesome. Again, Loren Healy, King of the Hammers champion, father, husband, and for me personally, Loren, I bounce a lot of stuff off you, and I appreciate you as one of my mentors. So there's a lot of
Thank
stuff.
you.
I appreciate our friendship and our relationship. There's a lot of stuff I bounce off you. I appreciate your insight into things. You always call it how you see it. You never sugarcoat it, and I really appreciate that. So once again, thanks for coming on. And for those of you that joined us, we'll be back with another guest next week, and that's it. We'll sign off. Thanks again.
All right. See you guys.